Hello, everyone. It's Michaela here, creator of Introverts Spring, a website that helps introverts quietly revolutionize the way they see themselves. And today I am talking with best-selling author Brad Blanton about how introverts can create intimacy where there is none. Hello, Brad.
Hi.
All right, so Brad is the author of the best-selling book, Radical Honesty: How to Transform Your Life by Telling the Truth. He is known for being straight talking and telling it like it is. So he's going to tell us the truth today, whether we like it or not. Is that right, Brad?
That's right. Yeah. It's all right. It's not as bad as you think.
Okay, excellent. Well, so one thing I just want to clear up really quick before we get started is a major misconception that a lot of people have about introverts. And that is that introverts don't like people and that we always want to be alone. That's not true. In fact, the reason why introverts might not like parties and small talk and superficial banter is because they don't like the barriers that those things, those superficial pretenses create between people. Introverts actually really crave deep and meaningful connections. In other words, they crave intimacy. And yet, sometimes it can be challenging for them to establish that. So my first question for you is, do you think that it is harder for introverts in particular to create intimate relationships?
Uh, Introversion and extroversion are um, not there are no primary differences with regard to introversion or extroversion in terms of intimacy. There are different focuses of attention, but the intimacy primarily depends on reporting what you are paying attention to and describing that honestly,
Hmm.
so that the introversion and extroversion are subsumed under what we call the awareness continuum. And the awareness continuum is basically there's a limited number of things you can be aware of. The whole awareness continuum can be easily divided into three parts. You can notice what's going on inside your own skin right now, the sensations in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can notice what's going on outside of you right now. Other people, objects surround the world. And the third aspect is you can notice what's going through your mind. And
Mm.
there isn't anymore. I call it inside, outside, upside down. Because usually what's going through your mind is some kind of accidentally thrown together stuff that you have faith in, but it's not all that accurate. We're not that good at recording what's going on. So that noticing what's going through your mind and reporting it honestly is important, because if you're keeping a secret in order to protect someone else from knowing something that you're perceiving, then that is what the major interruption to intimacy is. Intimacy
Mm.
means just simply telling the truth as a beginning point. The beginning point is to describe what you're aware of. And your awareness always is occurring right now. You know what's going through your mind right now. You know what's going on in your body right now. And you can know what's going on outside of you right now. And there isn't any more in the world to notice. So
Okay.
that introversion is a
Mm-hmm.
style. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And
This is deep stuff.
extroversion
This
is a
is
style.
really good stuff here. And I know that introverts' ears were perking up about when you started talking about the awareness in your mind, because that's big. I mean, introverts are known for being
Mm-hmm.
in their head a lot. So let's just
Yeah.
break down that point a little bit, make it really clear and simple. Um, because it's so important. So again, like what exactly is the tie between that awareness in your mind and intimacy?
Okay. It's all a matter of getting good at noticing. It's getting the idea, the value that noticing is more important than thinking, period. Whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or, any other kind of vert, any other green carrot.
A banana vert, kiwi vert. Okay.
That's a good one. But the idea is that when you report what you notice going through your mind, it's not from an advocacy position. You're not trying to sell someone something about your rightness or wrongness. Or if you are, you say, I notice that I'm thinking I want to convince you that I'm right. But you're reporting what you notice going through your mind with a certain amount of neutrality. It's just a matter of sharing it. And the reason for sharing it is whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, most of what's going through your mind is total bullshit. It doesn't matter if you're focused more on what's going on in your mind, or that if you think that you're in a position where you have to convince the other mind over there that you're right and they're wrong, then you're already in a position of not noticing and reporting. You're in a position of advocacy in which you're promoting your image in the mind of the other person. So the reason we start out with what do you notice in the world? So you can say, I notice your lips, I notice your nose, I notice your eyes, I notice your hair. So when I focus on those things and report them, it's just practice in saying what I notice. And then I can say whatever I imagine about that would be, I imagine you're pretty. So I notice your lips, I imagine you're pretty. So I have reported a noticing and then an imagining about that noticing. I'm not trying to con you anything. I'm not trying to seduce you or anything like that. I'm just trying to report what goes through my mind. And you can, you might like it, you might not like it. It doesn't make much difference to me because what's important to me is that I tell you honestly what I notice and you tell me honestly what you notice, because there is no intimacy without that kind of honesty. If you're just, if I want to try to convince you I'm a good guy and a great lover so I can seduce you, that's an agenda, a mental agenda. If that's not shared as an honest thing, as your mental agenda, then it's not a reporting of your noticing. It's like a con game you're running. And the different con games are, introverts run con games that they're independent, separate, and don't need anything. And extroverts run con games that they're wonderful and everybody should love them and pay attention to them and stuff like that. It doesn't make any difference whether it's an introvert con game or an extrovert con game. The idea is to give up the con game.
Wow. Okay. That is really great stuff. What you just said there, I think is so true. And all the introverts listening are probably like, this guy is reading my mind. Yes, we all do have that, that con game going on. And yeah, as introverts, we want to make it seem like we don't need anybody. We can handle it on our own. And sometimes we end up coming off as aloof because of that. And so something else that you said really stood out to me, and that was so when you notice something, you're not attached to the outcome, right? So when you notice and you report what you're noticing, you're not so invested in how people are going to react, what they're going to think. You're just reporting it for, whatever message you need to tell yourself to make it something you want to do. Like, for example, what I mean is... Oh, sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, what I mean by that is, like, sometimes we have to play games with ourselves to, to make it more appealing. So something I've done in the past is I've told myself, you know what, I'm just going to test out this thing of being honest about my emotions because I hear that it makes people feel more trusting of you. So I'm just going to test it out. and it doesn't matter what the outcome is. I'm just going to try it with different people and see it as an experiment, see what happens. So I really love that advice. It works. It definitely does. But it does take practice.
And it also takes practice in telling them that what's going through your mind is you're wondering what effect it's going to have on them. And you're a little bit worried about it because you notice that too. See, you admit that you're a little scared when you are, and you admit that you're a little anxious if you are, and you admit that, you feel a certain tension more on the right side than on the left side because we tend to tend up on the right when we're trying to should on ourselves. And you just report what it is. And they'll say, oh, that's more information than I expected. And that's fine. Because the idea of sharing that information honestly is that really it's much more endearing to me and to nearly everybody when someone says, well, I'm trying to make you like me, or I'm trying to con you into thinking I'm really a great person. And I say, well, bless your heart. I already do because you said that, not because of what you said that was painting on a great person you were. Mm-hmm. It's that you're basically willing to share what's going on with you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so here is a question for you that I'm sure other people have kind of been wondering. So what's the difference then between just reporting what you're noticing and being one of those people who is just totally unfiltered, saying way too much and actually turning people off because of that?
Well, I would ask the person, if you have that theory, say, well, I imagine you're turned off because I'm talking too much. Is that so for you? Ask them and find out. It's just another one of your imaginings to be tested out. See?
Yes.
So one of the reasons for doing this is that, we all need each other because our minds are very unreliable instruments. We don't have very reliable minds. We've been taught all of our lives that our mind is the most important thing. It's not. Noticing is much more important. And we've been taught all of our lives that who we are is our reputation. You're what the grades you make, and you're what the teacher thinks of you, and you're what your peers think of you, and you're what scores you make on tests, and how much money you have. All these things are supposedly who you are. But that's not who you are. Who you are is a noticing being who has the capability of being present and sharing. And that fundamental identity as a noticing being is a lot more reliable and secure and real than the identity of what you imagine other people are imagining about you based on what you imagined you should say to make them do that. It's all very complicated and confusing. Whereas if you're just a dummy and you go out there like a child and you say, yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. You say, if someone says, you think I look fat in this dress? You say, yeah.
And you this is the radical honesty part here. That's really radical. Yeah, and so the other word that stood out to me in what you just said was presence. Presence. When you notice things, you're being really present, and that is definitely a key to creating more meaningful relationships, creating intimacy.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So intimacy is sharing, I think. Yes.
Okay. There's a little bit of a delay, which makes it tricky to ask the questions, but we've covered a bit of why being radically honest and noticing can create deeper relationships, create that intimacy that we all crave, even if we're afraid to admit it. So what are some other examples of ways that you can really get beyond the surface in relationships?
You don't want to get beyond the surface. I think you want to be on the surface. That you
Oh.
want to, I think you got to report the simplest observations, the most childlike noticings, uh, that actually being in touch with the very surface of things is the fundamental introduction to intimacy. Because when you're in your mind about what you ought to do or how you ought to be or how they ought to behave or how you all ought to get along or what the relationship should mean, you're in there running around, running around. What did they say about you on Facebook? Or what did, if you're doing all that, you know that you're in your mind. And you know that you're attached to having things be either other than what they are or what they are.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yes.
And
Okay. So how does one then go from being used to being in the practice of always being in their head and hiding their inner thinkings and motives? How do you go from that to being somebody who reports what they notice and who's radically honest? Seems like it would be hard to make that transition.
well, like the New Yorker said to someone who stopped her on the street and said, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And she said, "Practice, practice, practice." The way you get to Carnegie Hall is to practice, practice, practice. You practice saying simple, dumb things like a child. And you learn from children. Children are the best teachers anyway, because they'll just say whatever they notice, whatever they think. And basically, that ability to do that is the ultimate attainment of adulthood. In fact, Nietzsche said, the ultimate attainment of adulthood is to rediscover that focus of a child at play. A child at play is completely concentrated. They're engaged. They're called forth. They're doing this, then doing that, because that's the next thing to do. And that is the ultimate accomplishment of adulthood. You have your mind, you have your experience and all that, but you're willing to be present to what's in front of you, what's going on with you, and what's going through your mind, and to share it with others. And there's another reason, and that is I don't trust anyone's mind. I don't trust my own mind. So why in the hell should I trust yours? Right? So, and our minds are very untrustworthy entrants, and I need your information to correct my wrong impressions. I need your information to clear things up in my mind. I need to have your perspective on things in order to get a wider and more valid and more applicable perspective on things. Because I think I've got the right perspective, but all of us are basically a little screwy in the head because we're in our minds too much. And believe me, it's not just introverts. Extroverts, their minds are just like a little louder. That's all. And
Yes. So the example you gave, or the quote you gave rather, of being like a child who's really focused and really involved and present with what they're doing, I think that that is a great quote for introverts especially to take to heart, because introverts thrive off focused activities. It's actually all the overstimulation and the distraction that drains us. So if you can transfer that focus that you naturally crave as an introvert into your conversations with people and into, this idea of being present, then, I mean, that alone is going to make it so much easier to apply these things that you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. These are actually some radical concepts for a lot of people. And it's something I'll admit I've been exposed to, and I've practiced a little bit of it, but the way you put it really clarified a lot of things. And I think if everyone today just tries this out in one conversation, even you're going to see what an impact it has. That's what I always like to say is, just try one thing. Just try it one time without putting so much pressure on yourself. That's all it takes to start seeing the changes that will have a domino effect.
Yeah, what I generally recommend is that you ask a friend to practice for a week with you. So here I've heard this ridiculous theory called radical honesty. and, and you can go to our website or find it, you can get it free on the internet, or you can get it downloaded or find excerpts from Radical Honesty. But basically, you say to your friend, I want to try this just for a week. So let's for a week be completely honest with each other. We'll be completely honest with each other for a week. And then at the end of the week, we'll sit down and have a conversation for an hour. What did we like and what did we not like about it? And then then you can go back to doing like you were before. And basically, you have a choice then after you've done that. Well, am I going to keep doing this or not? And the problem is we don't have very good experimental evidence because we can't get anybody to go back and do it the way they used to after they've done it for a week. So we're bad experimenters.
Yeah, that is a great idea, great challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling a bit nervous. I was going to say I'm going to try that out, but I'm actually nervous. Wow, it's kind of scary to think of being that honest. But I think it's a worthwhile challenge for sure. And I like that idea of doing it with someone you're already comfortable with first. That is a great piece of advice. Okay, so super enlightening, really great talking with you. Before we go, can you tell everyone how they can find you and more resources by you?
Okay. I want to underline one thing, that it's about getting dumber rather than getting smarter. I like particularly communicating that to introverts because it's a mild affront. And so we actually, many years I ran this workshop, which is 8 days long, called The Course in Honesty. Some people call it The Curse of Honesty, but anyway, it's The Course of Honesty. And we taught people. We found after about 10 years of doing that 4 or 5 times a year, we discovered a chant that always leads to enlightenment within 3 minutes. And usually I charge a whole lot of money for this, but I'm going to give it to you and your viewers here for free. And the chant that will get you enlightened in 3 minutes is this. Duh. And if you just chant that, if you slobber, you get there in a minute and a half. And when you get so dumb, you just say, whatever's in front of you, glasses. What happens is you come into a kind of presence to each other, and you get all the corrections that your mind needs. You get all the new information. You share more information than usual because you're not being sophisticated. You're just saying what's going on like a dummy. And actually that benefits tremendously. That's my highest recommendation. You can read more of this stuff at radicalhonesty.com. Basically that, and what the links that you'll be led to from that will be the source for most of what people want to find out.
Yes, and I have put the link down below for everyone. And I love your chant. That was that was great. That was great. Well, it has been a pleasure. Just a quick reminder to everyone before we go is that Fulfilling Connections for Introverts is coming up soon. So learn how that you can connect with people on a deeper level and create true intimacy in your life by clicking the link below. All right. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining me.
Thanks.
It's been great. Even had some good giggles. So that's always nice. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening, for watching, actually. If you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.